The first clutch adjustment that we're going to do will be on a 5-speed model. We'll follow this with the procedures for adjusting the clutch on the 4-speed model. Now, the first thing you want to do is to loosen up the lock nut on the cable, like so, and then loosen your cable so that you have sufficient free play to turn the adjuster on the clutch basket. It's important to have slack in the cable, otherwise you'll receive a false reading when you turn the adjuster on the pressure plate itself. And these also are fine threaded. Let's just give it a little more to be on the safe side. Now, adjusting a 5-speed clutch is different from adjusting a 4-speed clutch. Many of the procedures we're going to use will be similar, but the major difference will come during the final stages of the adjustment. Okay, that should do it. You should have approximately a ½ inch of free cable length. Pull the housing out of the adjuster like so, and make sure you have at least this much clearance. Okay, the next step will be to loosen the adjuster nut on the pressure plate. Yeah, let me take my extension off here. There we go. I'll turn it out by hand. Turn the nut out about 4 or 5 turns to make sure that it won't bottom up against the pressure plate. With the nut backed off, I'm going to use a flat blade screwdriver and turn the adjuster nut itself until I feel sufficient slack in it. And then I'm going to add a ½ turn to be on the safe side. Now what we're going to do is we're going to begin to do the final adjustment. And to do this, you're going to have to put your hand over to the other side to feel the free play on the clutch release arm. Viewing this from the other side of the motorcycle, you should have this amount of free play in the clutch arm. What I'm going to do now is to turn my adjuster screw in until I take out that free play. And it should be just a slight movement of the arm like so, and I can feel pressure begin on the clutch rod. For the sake of clarity, this is the adjuster screw that I've been turning. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to back this screw off 1/8 of a turn, right about there, and I'm going to hold my screwdriver in place while I finger tighten the nut back down against the pressure plate. Now when I get the nut down on the pressure plate like so, I'm going to go ahead and take a wrench and snug it up a little bit, keeping the screw from turning, like so. Okay, and I'll take my socket and finish tightening it just like that. Okay, now with this adjustment completed, what we're going to do is to take up the free play out of the clutch cable. And over here, you want to turn your adjuster nut out so that you have approximately 1/4 of an inch of free play up at the clutch lever. Now, if you've been riding a 4-speed for a while, you can tell that doing the adjustment on a 5-speed is just a little different. Okay, I've got about 1/4 of an inch up here. And that 1/4 of an inch is measured right up here on the blade. The reason why we have that free play there is to keep from wearing on the clutch rod and the throw-out bearing. What I like to do is to operate the clutch a couple of times just to make sure that my free play is still right at 1/4 of an inch. Now with that out of the way, you can go ahead and reassemble, put the derby cover back on, and your clutch adjustment is complete. The procedure for adjusting the 4-speed clutch is very similar to the 5-speed clutch, except that we're not going to have to be worried about the clutch arm. First, we're going to loosen up the cable adjuster, just as we did with the 5-speed, until we have sufficient free play in the cable, like so. Secondly, come down, remove your derby cover, and loosen the lock nut around the clutch adjuster nut. Remember to loosen it sufficiently so that we can turn the adjuster screw in. Now, with that cable loose, we turn the adjuster nut in until we feel it contact the clutch push rod. What I like to do is turn it another half a turn, back it off, and come back onto it again. Okay, and I feel pressure right about here. From this point, back it off approximately 1/4 of a turn, and while you're holding the screwdriver in place, lightly tighten up that clutch adjuster nut. I'm going to use a 9/16 wrench to snug her down. I'll take my ratchet with my socket on here. Just give it a little bit of a tug. It doesn't have to be overly tight. And lastly, I'll come back up here and tighten up the clutch adjuster, the cable adjuster that is, until I have just a little bit of play at the cable end here, and go up to the handlebars and check to make sure that I have that 1/4 inch free play up at the lever like I did with the 5-speed.